Life is full of unexpected twists, especially when it comes to family, dreams, and the pursuit of success. In today's story, we follow the journey of an inventor who faced ridicule, self doubt, and fierce criticism from her own brother. But through sheer determination, she turned a simple idea into a global phenomenon, all while navigating the complex relationship with her sibling. This is a story about perseverance, reconciliation, and the true meaning of success. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to start today's story with life stories. The words echoed in my mind for days, like a mantra that refused to leave me. A bracelet that finds stuff? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. My brother Jake had laughed when I first showed him the prototype of the locator band. His voice, sharp and mocking, sliced through the quiet of our small garage. To him, it was nothing more than a joke, a foolish idea, a waste of time. To me, though, it was everything. It was my dream. The garage was my sanctuary, my little world where I could escape everything. Most of the time, it looked like a disaster zone. Wires tangled around tools, old circuit boards, and metal scraps strewn across the workbench. But it was home, a place where I felt alive. It was where my thoughts, those fleeting ideas that seemed impossible to others, took shape. I had always been different from Jake. While he thrived on popularity in sports, I found solace in solitude and creation. It was a stark contrast that always seemed to amplify the tension between us. Jake had always been the golden child, the one who everyone admired. He had the looks, the charm, the athletic ability. I was the odd one out, the girl who spent hours playing with wires and scraps, building things that no one seemed to care about. To Jake, it was childish, an obsession that was distracting me from what he thought were real goals. Getting good grades? Playing football? Getting into a good college? And eventually, landing a high-paying corporate job. Those were the things that mattered. Not my junk, as he called it. It wasn't supposed to be this way, the ridicule, the doubt, but it was also the driving force that kept me going. His laughter still rang in my ears, even as I bent over the workbench, carefully soldering the final connections on the locator band. It wasn't much, just a small bracelet designed to help people find lost items using GPS technology. You could wear it, and if you misplaced something, your keys, your wallet, even your pet, the band would help you track it down. Simple, practical, useful. At least that's what I believed. And yet, as I looked at it, I couldn't shake the feeling of doubt. What if Jake was right? What if this whole thing was a waste of time? I had worked so hard on it. Late nights, endless trial and error, moments of pure frustration when nothing seemed to work. But still, I couldn't stop. This was who I was. This was how I made sense of the world. Each invention, each creation felt like a piece of me. Without it, I was lost. The rain beat against the roof of our house, a steady rhythm that matched the beating of my heart. The storm outside seemed like a reflection of the turmoil inside me. I thought back to all the times Jake had belittled my creations. The ridicule wasn't new. But that day, something shifted. I told myself I had finally made something that mattered. I had finally created something that could change the world. Then, just as I was finishing the last touch, I heard him. Jake's sneakers squeaked as he entered the garage. The door creaked open, and he stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, his usual smirk plastered across his face. "What's this?" he asked, nodding toward the mess on the workbench. His tone was already laced with mockery before I even opened my mouth. I stammered, suddenly feeling self-conscious under his gaze. It's kind of hard to explain," I said, my voice shaking slightly. I held up the bracelet, its sleek design glistening in the dim light. "It's called the locator band. You wear it, and if you lose something, it helps you find it." Jake raised an eyebrow. His smirk widened. "You're kidding, right? A bracelet that finds stuff? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." He let out a bark of laughter, throwing his head back. "Do you really think anyone cares about finding their socks faster? Or are you just trying to impress Mom again?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I forced a laugh, pretending they didn't sting. Deep down, I knew he was wrong, or at least I hoped he was. Because if he wasn't, then everything I had poured into this project, every late night, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt, would have been for nothing. I wanted to shout. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't doing this for anyone but myself. But instead, I just stood there, holding the locator band in my hand, wondering if I was wasting my time. I remembered something my dad used to say: if you build something that solves a problem, someone will want it. It was simple advice, but it stuck with me. People lose things all the time. It happened to everyone. The locator band might not be perfect, but it addressed a real problem. And if I could make it work, if I could make it better, maybe it could become something extraordinary. With that thought, I pushed aside my doubt and threw myself back into perfecting the prototype. The ridicule faded into the background as the fire within me burned brighter. I had a purpose, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even Jake, stop me from seeing it through. Months passed since that day in the garage, and the pain of Jake's mockery never fully left me. But slowly, it transformed from a wound into something more like a push, one that drove me to work harder, to refine the locator band until it was no longer just a simple idea, but a tangible, functioning device. I spent countless hours tweaking the software, testing the hardware, and making sure every tiny detail worked seamlessly. I reached out to friends, classmates, anyone who might help, asking them to test it out and give me feedback. At first, they were skeptical, just like Jake had been. But when they saw how effective it was, their skepticism turned into genuine interest. They started suggesting improvements, telling me about moments in their lives when a device like the locator band would have saved them hours of searching. Their enthusiasm fueled me, lifting me higher than I ever thought possible. But even with all the progress, there was always a lingering doubt. Was this really going to work? Could something so simple, so unassuming, make a difference in the world? It wasn't until the local tech competition in Chicago that I truly found my answer. I knew it was a long shot. The competition was fierce, filled with students and professionals who had years of experience and high-tech gadgets that seemed light years ahead of my small project. But something inside me said, "You have to try." The night before the event, I barely slept. The nerves were unbearable, buzzing through me like an electric current. What if no one liked it? What if I made a fool of myself? The questions kept me awake, swirling in my mind as the clock ticked closer to dawn. But when I arrived at the competition the next day, something shifted inside me. Despite the towering booths of robots and apps, despite the sea of confident faces, there was something undeniably right about the locator band. I set up my booth, trying not to let my nerves show. People walked past, glancing at the unassuming bracelet with skepticism. But as soon as I demonstrated how it worked, showing how the bracelet connected to a phone and pinpointed the location of lost items, something changed. The hesitations melted away. Eyes widened. People stopped by, asking questions, offering suggestions, even telling me about the times they wished they had something like it. The buzz around my table grew louder, more excited. By the end of the day, my booth was one of the busiest in the room. I couldn't believe it. People who had earlier dismissed my creation as just another silly gadget were now excited about it, eager to learn more. When the judges finally announced the winners, I stood there, holding my breath. I didn't expect to hear my name. But when they called out Locator Band as the first place winner, I nearly fainted. The applause, the flashing cameras, the reporters shoving microphones in my face, it was surreal. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not as the quirky girl who spent too much time in the garage, but as someone who had created something valuable. The victory felt like a dream come true. In the days that followed, the news spread quickly, thanks in part to social media. Articles about the locator band began popping up, praising its ingenuity and practicality. Investors reached out, eager to discuss funding opportunities. Companies offered to buy the rights to it outright, offering sums of money that made my head spin. Suddenly, I was thrown into a world I never imagined for myself. A world of business meetings, contracts, and multi-million-dollar deals. But as my success grew, one thing remained unchanged: Jake. He was conspicuously silent. When I returned home after the competition, trophy in hand, he barely acknowledged me. Dinner that night was awkward, heavy with an unspoken tension, and that's when I finally confronted him. "Why do you hate my inventions so much?" I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. "Why do you always have to tear me down?" Jake hesitated, caught off guard by my directness. He fidgeted in his seat, avoiding my gaze. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he muttered, "I don't hate them. I don't get them. All this tech stuff, it's not normal. You're supposed to focus on real goals, not waste your time on stupid gadgets." His words hurt more than I expected, but they also sparked something inside me. Anger, yes, but also a deep resolve. If Jake couldn't understand my passion, that was his problem, not mine. I had proven myself, not just to him, but to the world. And I wasn't going to let anyone, especially my own brother, diminish what I had accomplished. Years had passed since that day when the locator band first became a global sensation. My company had grown beyond what I could have ever imagined. Sales soared, demand skyrocketed, and the media hailed me as a tech prodigy. I had gone from the girl in the garage to a successful entrepreneur, navigating the world of boardrooms and multi-million-dollar deals. But as much as my professional life had flourished, my personal life remained tangled in the unresolved tension with Jake. Despite everything, I hadn't been able to fix our relationship, and the lingering wounds were always there, festering beneath the surface. One evening, months after the competition, I sat in my office, reviewing the latest version of the locator band and planning the next phase of the product's evolution. The room around me was filled with sleek furniture, cutting-edge gadgets, and countless trophies that stood as reminders of my success. Yet, amid all the accolades and accomplishments, something felt incomplete. It was then that I received an unexpected email from Jake. The subject line simply read, "Can we talk?" My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't heard from him in what seemed like forever. I clicked open the message with hesitation, almost afraid to read what it might say. Inside, in his usual blunt style, was a short message. "Hey sis, I know I haven't been the best brother. Maybe I judged you too harshly back then. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Really, let's catch up soon, Jake." The words hit me like a wave. Pride, relief, and even sadness all mixed together. I felt a lump form in my throat. After all these years, after all the criticism, here was Jake, acknowledging the things I'd longed for him to say. But it was more than just words. It felt like a small bridge, one that connected the past with the present, offering a chance for something new. I stared at the email for a long time before finally replying. "Let's talk. There's a lot to catch up on." I didn't know what to expect, but I knew this was something I couldn't ignore. The next week, we met in a coffee shop in San Francisco. It was a place neither of us would have chosen normally, too trendy for Jake, too mainstream for me, but it felt neutral, a place where neither of us had to pretend to be someone we weren't. When I arrived, Jake was already sitting at a corner table, a cup of black coffee in front of him. He looked out of place, his worn jeans and scuffed boots contrasted with the polished surroundings of the cafe. He glanced up as I approached, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt thick with unspoken words, like static waiting to discharge. "Hey," I said, finally breaking the silence. My voice sounded strange, tentative. "Hey," he replied, his tone matching mine. His eyes flicked to the window, then back to me. "Thanks for coming." I nodded, folding my hands on the table to steady them. "You said you wanted to talk." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, I did. Look, I don't know where to start. I guess I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything." His apology hung in the air, raw and unexpected. For so long, Jake had been the confident older brother, the one who never showed weakness. Seeing him now, stripped of that usual bravado, softened something inside me. "You've said sorry before," I pointed out gently, "but saying it isn't enough if nothing changes." "I know," he admitted, his gaze dropping to the table. "And I get that. Trust me, I do. But I want to try. I want to understand why I acted the way I did, and why you kept going even when I gave you every reason to stop." His honesty caught me off guard. For so long, I had carried the weight of our fractured relationship alone. I replayed his mocking comments, his dismissive laughter, over and over in my mind. But here he was, acknowledging the pain he had caused, not excusing it, but owning it. It was a start. "I didn't keep going because of you," I told him, my voice firm yet calm. "I kept going because of me. Creating things makes me happy. Solving problems feels like breathing to me. You can't take credit for that, Jake, and you can't blame yourself for it either." He nodded slowly, absorbing my words. "I guess I always thought I knew what was best for you, that football games and college parties were more important than whatever you were doing in the garage. I thought I was protecting you from wasting your time on something no one cared about. But you were wrong." "Yeah," I finished for him. "You were wrong." A small, reluctant smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Turns out you're pretty hard to protect." His words made me laugh, a small, hesitant sound, but it broke some of the tension between us. For the first time in years, it felt like we were truly seeing each other. Not as rivals, not as opposites, but as two people trying to navigate life in their own ways. We talked for hours that day, unraveling old wounds, confronting truths we had both avoided. Jake admitted that part of his hostility toward my inventions came from jealousy. He admired my ability to dream big, to follow through on something that seemed impossible. He admitted feeling overshadowed by my success, even though he had never acknowledged it outwardly, and I shared how his constant criticism had planted seeds of doubt in my mind. His words had made me question whether I was good enough, whether I was smart enough to succeed. As we left the coffee shop that evening, the sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, the sun dipping below the horizon. We walked in silence for a while, the kind of quiet that only comes after a long conversation, the kind that leaves you feeling lighter, freer. "You know," Jake said eventually, breaking the stillness, "you really are amazing, sis, even if I was too blind to see it before." "Thank you," I replied softly, my voice thick with emotion. "That means a lot." As we parted ways that night, I realized something profound. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting the past or pretending it didn't happen. It was about choosing to move forward, despite it all. It was about recognizing that people grow, change, and evolve, and giving them the space to do so. Little did I know that this conversation would mark the beginning of a new chapter in our relationship, one where we could truly see each other, not as siblings in competition, but as two people trying to make the most of their lives. And with Jake by my side, I felt ready for whatever came next. As the years passed, the locator band became more than just a product. It became a symbol of persistence, of believing in yourself when no one else did. My company continued to thrive, evolving alongside new technologies and innovations, but it was the lessons I had learned along the way about determination, family, and the importance of staying true to myself that truly shaped me. With Jake's support, things had changed. Our bond, once broken by misunderstandings and jealousy, had been rebuilt, stronger than ever. We now work together, not as rivals but as partners, each bringing something unique to the table. Jake had found his own path, and though he still wasn't fully immersed in the world of technology, he had come to respect what I did. More importantly, he had come to respect me. That meant more to me than any deal, any invention, or any amount of success. We had become a family again, one where we understood each other's strengths and weaknesses, a family that didn't tear each other down, but lifted each other up. Looking back, I realized that the path I had taken, full of struggles, doubts, and moments of ridicule, had shaped me into who I was. It wasn't the accolades or the financial success that mattered most, but the relationships that had stood the test of time. I had learned that true success wasn't about the number of zeros in your bank account, but about doing what you love, surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, and never giving up on your dreams. As I looked to the future, I knew there were still more inventions to create, more obstacles to overcome, and more dreams to chase. But I also knew, with Jake by my side, I was ready for whatever came next. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more life stories and inspiring journeys.